I used to think silence was peaceful, that the absence of words meant harmony. But over time, I learned that silence can also be the loudest sound in a home. My name is Rachel. I'm 34 years old, and for the past 2 years, I've been married to Lisa. She's a good woman, strong, successful, respected, but somewhere along the way, we lost the ability to look at each other with love. Our conversations became instructions. Our dinners became quiet rituals. And our bed turned into a line drawn down the middle of two lonely souls pretending everything was fine. It's strange how you can share a roof and still feel completely alone. Lisa had a daughter. From her first marriage, Maya, I had never met her properly. She was studying abroad, living her own life. Lisa talked about her often, but always with a tone that carried both pride and distance. She wasn't a hands-on mother. Maybe because her first marriage ended badly. Maybe because she didn't know how to show affection. I never asked Dot. Then one morning, over breakfast, Lisa looked up from her phone and said almost casually, "Maya's coming to stay for a few months. She finished college and needs some time to figure things out." I remember nodding, pretending it didn't matter. But inside, I felt something shift. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was fear. I didn't know then that her arrival would change everything. 2 weeks later, Maya walked into our house. I still remember the first time I saw her standing at the door, suitcase in hand, smiling shyly. She was 24, with calm brown eyes that carried a softness I hadn't seen in this house for a long time. She hugged Lisa politely, not tightly, and then turned to me. "You must be Rachel," she said. "Mom told me you make the best coffee." I smiled, awkwardly brushing my hair back. "That's the only thing I do well around here." She laughed, really laughed. A sound so light and unguarded that it echoed through the cold walls like sunlight through a window. That evening, I made her coffee. She sat on the kitchen counter, swinging her legs and telling stories about her college friends, about missing home but not really knowing what home meant anymore. Lisa stayed in her office on another work call. I just listened. For the first time in a long time, someone was talking to me without expecting anything in return. Over the next few days, life in the house changed in small, almost invisible ways. The living room, once quiet and cold, filled with music again, Maya's playlist playing softly in the background. There were fresh flowers on the dining table, laughter from the kitchen, footsteps that didn't sound heavy or angry. Lisa noticed it too, though she didn't say much. She just stayed longer at work, leaving me and Maya alone more often. One night, after dinner, I found Maya sitting on the balcony, her laptop open, a blanket wrapped around her. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked Dot. She shook her head. "I'm used to noise. This house is too quiet." I chuckled. "You'll get used to it." She looked at me then, her eyes soft but curious. "Do you like it here, Rachel? I mean, this life?" The question caught me off guard. Nobody had asked me that before, not even Lisa. "I used to," I said finally. "But sometimes I feel like I'm just existing, not living." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know that feeling." We didn't speak after that. Just sat there, listening to the wind. Two women separated by years and circumstances, but somehow connected by the same quiet sadness. The next morning, she made me coffee. "Your turn to be spoiled," she said with a grin. I laughed, a real laugh. "This is terrible," I teased after the first sip. She gasped dramatically. "Wow, so much for gratitude." And just like that, something shifted between us. Days turned into weeks, and our small interactions became the highlight of my days. When Lisa left for work, Maya would help me water the plants, talk about her future, her dreams, her fears. She told me she wanted to work in social outreach, helping women find safe spaces. I told her I used to love painting before life got in the way, She asked why I stopped. I didn't have an answer. Sometimes when I was working in the kitchen, I'd feel her watching me from the doorway. Not in a strange way, just quietly observing, like she was trying to understand me. And I found myself doing the same. There was warmth in her that I hadn't felt in years, a kind of kindness that wasn't forced. A smile that didn't need permission. One evening, as the sun went down, I caught her in the garden, barefoot, humming a song I used to love years ago. I stood by the window, just watching her. The way the orange light touched her hair, the way her laughter melted into the breeze, it felt like watching a forgotten part of myself come alive. Lisa came home late that night. She didn't notice the flowers on the table or the faint music still playing. She just placed her bag on the couch and said, "Turn that down, please. I have a headache." I turned the music off, but something inside me refused to go silent again. That night, I lay awake in bed, listening to the faint sound of Maya's laughter coming from her room. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. It wasn't love. Not yet. It wasn't even desire. It was the feeling of being seen, of being heard. And as I closed my eyes, I whispered to myself, almost in disbelief. For the first time in years, the house felt alive again. The nights began to stretch longer after Maya moved in. Lisa was often away, business trips, conferences, dinners with clients that somehow always ran late. I told myself it didn't bother me anymore, that I'd grown used to the emptiness beside me. But somehow, now that the house had begun to feel alive again, the emptiness felt heavier. It was around midnight when I first noticed Maya sitting alone on the balcony. The soft light from her laptop reflected off her face, her eyes tired but awake. I stepped out quietly, holding a cup of tea. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "You too?" I nodded. "Sleep and I aren't really on speaking terms these days." She laughed softly, a tired laugh. "Same here." I sat beside her. The city stretched below us, quiet but glowing. For a while, neither of us said anything. The silence wasn't awkward. It was honest. Two souls too tired to pretend. After a few minutes, she closed her laptop and leaned back. "Do you ever feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't even know what it is?" I looked at her. "Every day." She smiled sadly. "Yeah, me too." That night became the first of many. We began meeting on the balcony almost every night. No plans, no reason. Sometimes we talked about small things, books, music, her college life, the neighbors. Other nights, the conversations drifted somewhere deeper. She told me she was scared of failing, of disappointing people, of never being enough. I listened quietly. Then, one night, her voice cracked when she said, "My mom never really hugged me when I was a kid." I turned to her, surprised. She wasn't cruel, she continued softly. Just distant. Everything was about grades, manners, performance. She'd say "good job" sometimes, but I can't remember the last time she said, "I love you." Her eyes shimmered in the dim light. I used to think maybe I didn't deserve it. I wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that Lisa simply didn't know how to love softly, but I stayed silent because part of me felt guilty. I was supposed to defend my wife, but I couldn't, not when I knew exactly what Maya meant. Without thinking, I placed my hand over hers. Just a small gesture, a human instinct. She didn't pull away. "I'm sorry," I whispered. She looked up, a single tear escaping before she smiled. "You're kind, Rachel. Too kind for your own good." Her words lingered in the air long after she went to bed. I found myself thinking about her often, her voice, her laugh, the way she tried to be strong, even when she was breaking inside. I told myself it was a protective feeling, like an older sister or a mentor. But something inside me knew that wasn't the whole truth. One evening, the rain began to fall, heavy and relentless. Lisa was away again, and the house felt wrapped in the sound of thunder. I saw Maya standing by the window, staring out into the storm. "You'll catch a cold," I said, walking over. She turned to me, smiling softly. "I like watching the rain. It's honest. It doesn't hide what it feels." Her words hit me harder than they should have. We stood there together, watching the water race down the glass. I could feel her presence beside me, close enough to sense her warmth, close enough to feel my heart start to race. I didn't say a word. Neither did she. But something between us shifted, subtle, invisible, undeniable. The next few nights, sleep became impossible. Every sound, every faint laugh from down the hall reminded me of her. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself what was wrong with me. It wasn't love. It couldn't be. It was loneliness. That's what I kept telling myself. But one night, as we sat on the balcony again, she leaned her head back against the chair and said quietly, "You know what's funny? I feel safer talking to you than anyone else. Even Mom." I smiled weakly. Maybe that's because I listen. She turned to look at me, her eyes shining in the dim light. "No, it's because you care." The words landed deep. Too deep. She reached out, maybe to emphasize what she meant. Maybe without thinking, and her fingers brushed against my hand. It was nothing, just a moment. But time stopped. Her hand lingered there, soft and trembling. My breath caught. We both froze, eyes locked in that fragile, silent second, the kind of silence where hearts speak louder than words ever could. Then, almost instantly, she pulled her hand back. "Sorry," she whispered, her voice unsteady. "It's okay," I said quietly. But it wasn't. It wasn't okay because the moment felt too real, too honest. And that honesty terrified me. The rain had stopped by then. The world outside looked clean, but inside me, everything felt messy. That night, when I went to bed, Lisa's side was still cold, untouched. I stared at the empty space beside me, feeling the ghost of Maya's hand still resting against mine. And in that silence, my heart whispered something I didn't want to hear. I didn't know if I wanted to protect her or hold her forever. The thought scared me so much that I turned off the light and buried my face in the pillow as if darkness could erase it, but it didn't. It only made the feeling louder. The clock ticked past 2. The house was quiet again. Except for the echo of one thought I couldn't silence. Something had changed between us. Something soft, fragile, and dangerously alive. And deep down, I knew. Sleepless nights were only the beginning. That night, I lay awake in bed, listening to the faint sound of Maya's laughter coming from her room. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel empty. It wasn't love. Not yet. It wasn't even desire. It was the feeling of being seen, of being heard. And as I closed my eyes, I whispered to myself almost in disbelief. For the first time in years, the house felt alive again. The night it happened, the sky seemed heavier than usual. Dark clouds pressed against the windows, and rain whispered relentlessly on the roof. The house felt emptier than ever. Lisa had left earlier that morning for a 3-day work trip. Her goodbye quick and distracted, like so many others before it. By evening, the power went out. The silence that followed was deafening. No hum of appliances, no faint music. Just the steady rhythm of rain and the sound of Rachel's uneven breathing. She sat on the couch in the dim light of a candle. Staring at nothing, her thoughts spiraling, her narration began. Quiet and trembling. Some nights are so silent. You start hearing your own regrets talking back to you. She had tried to distract herself with reading, with chores, with tea, but the loneliness gnawed deeper. It wasn't just about being alone in a room. It was about being unseen in a life. Years of distant love, quiet dinners, and unspoken resentment had carved something hollow inside her. A soft knock on the door startled her. It was Maya, barefoot, her face faintly lit by the candlelight she carried. "The lights went out in my room," she said softly. "Can I stay here for a bit?" Rachel nodded. "Of course." They sat together on the couch, the flickering glow casting long, tender shadows across their faces. For a while, neither spoke. The rain grew louder, tapping against the windows like fingers begging to be let in. Finally, Maya whispered, "I used to love storms when I was a kid. They made me feel safe, like the world outside was crying for me." Rachel looked at her, surprised. "Crying for you?" Maya gave a faint, sad smile. "Yeah, I guess I always felt invisible. My mom, she never really saw me. I kept trying to be perfect just to be noticed. But it never worked." The words hung in the air like something fragile. Rachel's chest tightened. She understood that feeling, the ache of being unnoticed, unloved. "Maya," she said gently, "you don't need to be perfect to be seen." Maya's eyes shimmered in the candlelight. "Then why does it still feel like no one does?" There was nothing Rachel could say to fix it. So she did the only thing she could. She reached out and placed her hand over Maya's. It was a small gesture, soft and hesitant, but it broke something open between them. For a long moment, neither moved. The storm outside roared louder, wind rattling the windows. Then Rachel whispered, "I know what that emptiness feels like. It eats at you, makes you forget who you are." Maya looked up at her, tears brimming in her eyes. "Does it ever go away?" Rachel shook her head slowly. "Sometimes, but not always." Something inside Rachel cracked then. Maybe it was the years of silence. Maybe the look in Maya's eyes, or maybe just the storm. Her own tears fell before she could stop them. Maya moved closer instinctively and wrapped her arms around her. The hug was desperate, trembling, not born of desire, but of shared pain. Rachel buried her face against Maya's shoulder, letting out the sob she'd held in for months. "It's okay," Maya whispered softly. "You don't have to hold it all in." Rachel clung tighter. She didn't want to let go. The world outside seemed to vanish. No thunder, no guilt, no time. Just two broken souls holding on to each other as if the contact could make the pain disappear. Her voiceover carried over the quiet moment. It wasn't passion. It was pain meeting pain. And for one moment, the world stopped hurting. The candle flickered weakly, casting shifting shadows on the walls, the only witnesses to what was happening inside their hearts. Then, as if waking from a dream, Rachel suddenly pulled away. The room felt too still. The sound of her heartbeat echoed in her ears, and guilt surged up, raw and immediate. "I shouldn't have." She started, her voice trembling. Maya shook her head quickly. "You didn't do anything wrong. I wanted you to feel okay." But Rachel couldn't meet her eyes. "No, I crossed something I shouldn't have. You were just trying to help, and She couldn't finish the sentence. The words felt like ash on her tongue. Maya reached out as if to say something, but Rachel stood abruptly. "I think you should rest," she whispered, turning toward the dark hallway. Maya hesitated. "Rachel, please," Rachel said quietly, almost pleading. "Just go." The door to Maya's room closed softly behind her. Rachel stood alone in the dim light, her hands trembling. She pressed her palms to her face, trying to quiet the storm inside her, but it was no use. The thunder outside echoed the chaos. In her chest, her final narration drifted through the silence. "I used to think the worst thing in life was being unloved. But it's not. It's realizing that in trying to fill your emptiness, you might break someone else's heart and your own." As the storm began to fade, the power returned, filling the house with a cold, artificial light. Rachel looked around the room. Everything seemed the same, but nothing was. The candle had burned down completely. The air still smelled of rain and Stepdaughter, and in the distance, she could hear Maya's quiet sobs through the thin walls. a sound that would haunt her long after the night was gone. Rachel sat down again, her eyes fixed on the flickering shadows the candle had left behind. The narration faded to a whisper. That night changed nothing, but it also changed everything. And then there is only silence. Morning light always tells the truth. No matter how tightly you close your eyes, it finds its way through the curtains, spilling across everything you wish it wouldn't. That morning, it touched the quiet faces of two women who didn't know what to say anymore. I woke before the sun. My head ached, my heart even more. The sound of rain from the night before was gone, replaced by the chirping of birds that felt almost cruel in their cheerfulness. Maya's door was half open down the hall. For a moment, I thought about knocking, about saying something, anything that might make sense of what had happened. But my feet froze. My breath caught Dot, so I turned away. I made coffee, pretending it was just another day. Pretending I hadn't crossed the line I'd spent my whole life believing I never would. When Maya walked in, I couldn't meet her eyes. She looked pale, tired, lost. She stood there, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. "Good morning," she whispered. I nodded. Morning. That was it. 2 words, carrying the weight of everything we couldn't say. She sat at the table while I stared at the coffee mug in my hands. Every sound, the ticking of the wall clock, the rustle of the curtains, the hum of the refrigerator, felt deafening. I think we should talk," she finally said. "I can't," I replied quietly. "Not right now." Her eyes softened. "Rachel, please," I interrupted, my voice cracking. "Don't." She didn't argue. She just nodded, slowly, and stood up. The sound of her footsteps leaving the kitchen felt like a closing door inside my chest. Spent the rest of the day avoiding her. Every room she entered, I left. Every glance she tried to give me, I looked away. I told myself it was the right thing to do. That distance was safer, cleaner. But nothing about it felt clean. I couldn't escape the guilt. It followed me like a shadow. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself anymore. Just a woman who'd betrayed her own heart and didn't know how to live with it. That evening, Lisa returned from her work trip. I stood by the window as her car pulled into the driveway, my hands trembling. Maya was upstairs. The sound of her music drifted faintly through the ceiling, the same song that had played the night before. Lisa stepped inside, smiling, tired but happy to be home. "Hey," she said, wrapping her arms around me. "Missed you." I froze. For a second, I couldn't breathe. "I missed you too," I lied. She looked at me closely, her smile fading. "You okay?" "Just tired," I said, forcing a small smile. She nodded, kissed my forehead, and went to unpack. I stood there, motionless, staring at the floor, every heartbeat screaming with the guilt I couldn't confess. Over the next few days, the air in the house became heavier. Lisa couldn't explain it, but she felt it. The awkward silences, the half-finished conversations, the sudden distance between me and Maya. She asked once, "Did something happen while I was away?" I shook my head. "No, nothing." But she didn't believe me. I could see it in her eyes, that quiet suspicion that grows when love starts to sense a truth it doesn't want to know. At night, I started writing. It began as a way to breathe, to pour out everything I couldn't say aloud. I opened an old notebook and began to fill it with thoughts, feelings, and apologies that would never find ears willing to hear them. I wrote about the loneliness, the comfort that turned into confusion, the guilt that burned so deep it made sleep impossible. Every word was a confession I would never send. Maya tried, more than once, to speak to me. Sometimes she'd linger by the doorway, holding a cup of tea for me like she used to. Sometimes she'd sit at the edge of the living room, pretending to read. waiting for me to look her way, but I couldn't. Every time I saw her, my chest tightened with a mix of affection and regret that felt like poison. One night, she finally said quietly, "You can hate me if it helps." I turned to her, eyes filled with tears. "I don't hate you, Maya. I hate myself." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't say another word. She just nodded and walked away, slow, heavy steps that echoed in the silence. Later, Lisa came into the room and sat beside me. "You've been distant lately," she said gently. "Are we okay?" Her voice broke something inside me. I looked at her, at the woman I once loved, at the life I'd promised to keep safe, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if the tears in my eyes were for her or for myself. "We're fine," I whispered. "Just tired." She reached for my hand, but I couldn't hold it. My hands were trembling too much. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat in the dark, writing again. My words blurred with tears. The candle flickered, shadows dancing on the wall. I wrote, "Some mistakes don't scream. They whisper. They hide in your breath, your heartbeat, your silence. And you spend the rest of your life trying not to listen." The next morning, as Lisa stood by the window talking about her work plans, Maya passed behind her, carrying her bag, her eyes red but calm. For a split second, our gazes met, hers full of sorrow, mine full of guilt. And that was enough to shatter me all over again. Lisa turned to me, smiling faintly. "She's leaving for a few days, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, she needs time." When Maya stepped out of the door, I felt both relief and heartbreak. Relief that she was gone, heartbreak that she had to be. Lisa slipped her arm around my waist. "She's a sweet girl," she said softly. I looked out at Maya's car pulling away and whispered under my breath, "She reminds me of everything I destroyed." Lisa didn't hear me. Maybe it was better that way. The house fell quiet again, but this time it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that comes after a storm, when you realize that even though the rain has stopped, the damage remains asterisk. The sound of breaking glass wasn't from the kitchen. It was from inside Rachel's chest. She stood frozen in the doorway, watching Lisa hold her old leather journal, the pages trembling in her wife's shaking hands. Lisa's voice was a whisper, raw and sharp at once. "Tell me this isn't real, Rachel, please. Tell me this is fiction." Rachel's throat burned. No words came out. Her hands trembled as she tried to reach forward, but Lisa took a step back, clutching the journal as if it were proof of a crime. She'd never imagined what happened inside her own home. "I wasn't supposed to read it," Lisa said, her voice cracking. "I was cleaning the bookshelf and it fell out. I saw her name. I saw your words. I couldn't stop." Maya was standing in the hallway now, barefoot and pale, her wide eyes darting between them. "Listen, Mom, please, it's not what you think," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Not what I think?" Lisa turned to her, tears blurring her vision. "You my daughter and my wife? Do you even understand what you've done?" The room seemed to shrink. Every breath felt too heavy, every heartbeat too loud. Rachel tried to speak. "Lisa, I swear, it wasn't planned. I never wanted—" "Don't," Lisa cut her off sharply. "Don't insult me with excuses." Her voice cracked. "Do you know how many nights I sat right here thinking maybe I was the one who failed you? That maybe I didn't love you enough?" Rachel's tears fell freely now. "You didn't fail me. I failed myself. I was lonely, Lisa. So lonely I forgot what love was supposed to look like." Maya covered her face, sobbing. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she whispered. "Rachel was the only person who made me feel safe. It wasn't supposed to stop." Lisa shouted, her voice trembling with anger and heartbreak. "You don't get to use that word, safe. Nothing about this was safe. You both broke everything that was holding this family together. The silence that followed was unbearable. Rain began to fall outside, faint and cold against the window panes. It sounded like the world itself was crying for them. Rachel's narration filled the moment, her inner voice trembling. Broken, I thought love could heal loneliness. But I was wrong. It doesn't heal, it exposes. It magnifies. It shows you what you were missing, and then it takes it away. Lisa dropped the journal on the floor. Its pages fluttered open, and Rachel could see the ink-stained confession she had written only days ago. It wasn't love. It was two people trying to breathe inside the same drowning silence. Lisa's lips quivered as she turned toward the door. I can't stay here. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Please. Rachel stepped forward, but Lisa raised a trembling hand. Don't. Her voice softened, but it was no less painful. You had a choice, Rachel. You could have told me you were hurting. You could have reached for me. But instead, you reached for her. The front door opened. Cold air swept into the house as Lisa stepped out into the rain, leaving behind a silence that screamed louder than words. Rachel collapsed onto the couch, staring at the journal lying open on the floor. Maya knelt beside her, tears streaming down her face. What do we do now? She whispered. Rachel didn't look up. Her voice was hollow. Now, we live with what we've done. That's all that's left. Maya reached out, but Rachel pulled away gently, her expression heavy with guilt. Go to her, Maya. She needs you more than I ever did. Maya shook her head. She never forgive me. Rachel's eyes filled again. Neither will I. The rain outside grew heavier, blurring the world beyond the window. The house that once echoed with quiet laughter now felt empty, like every wall remembered what had been said, what had been done. Rachel's final narration faded into the background. Quiet but piercing. Sometimes the truth doesn't destroy you because it's cruel. It destroys you because it's real, and because it waited too long to be spoken. And as the lights dimmed, the only sound left was the rain, washing away what little remained of the home they once shared. Asterisk. It's been 8 months since that night, the night everything fell apart. The house feels too big now, too quiet. The echoes of footsteps that once filled it have faded into the walls. Rachel moves through each room, like a stranger trespassing in her own life. The living room still smells faintly of lavender, Lisa's favorite scent. Sometimes Rachel swears she can still feel her presence, sitting on the couch, sipping tea, reading in silence. But it's only memory playing tricks, trying to fill the emptiness. Lisa never came back, not even to collect the rest of her things. Her sister came instead, quiet and polite, boxing up clothes and photo frames, while Rachel stood frozen in the hallway. No words were exchanged, only the quiet sound of cardboard tape and regret. Maya left the city a week later. She didn't say goodbye in person, just a short message on Rachel's phone. Please forgive me someday. Rachel never replied. What could she possibly say? There were no words left that wouldn't reopen the wound. She spends most evenings now sitting by the window, watching the streetlights blur into amber streaks through her tears. The nights are long, and sleep never comes easily. Sometimes she writes, but the words don't heal anymore. They just remind her of what was lost. Her narration floats through the emptiness of the room, calm, broken, poetic. I used to think pain fades with time, that if you stop touching the wound, it will stop bleeding. But some wounds, they become part of who you are. On the table lies a photo frame, one she couldn't bring herself to pack away. It's from a family picnic 3 years ago. Lisa is laughing, sunlight catching her hair. Maya stands beside her, young and full of life, holding a cup of lemonade, looking at Rachel with that soft, trusting smile. Rachel touches the glass gently, her fingertips tracing the edges of faces she can no longer reach. Sometimes love doesn't come to stay, she whispers to herself. It comes to remind you how broken you already were. Outside, autumn has returned. Leaves fall like forgotten moments, painting the street gold and red. Rachel used to love this season, the scent of rain, the softness of wind, but now it only reminds her of endings. One afternoon, she goes to the park they used to visit. The bench under the old oak tree is still there, weathered and cracked, but familiar. She sits there for a long time, watching children play, couples holding hands, strangers passing by, all moving forward while she remains still. A soft breeze brushes her face, and for a moment, she imagines it's Maya's hand, gentle and warm. She closes her eyes and sees flashes, Maya's laughter, her teary eyes that night, the way her voice trembled when she said, "I'm sorry." When she opens her eyes again, there's only the wind. Only the quiet hum of life that no longer belongs to her. Days pass like shadows now. Rachel works, eats, sleeps, but none of it feels real. Her voice in narration grows softer, like she's speaking from far away. I've learned that love isn't always a blessing. Sometimes it's a mirror, showing you the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to see. One evening, as she sits at her desk, her phone buzzes. It's a message from an old mutual friend of Lisa's. The words are simple, almost gentle. Maya got married last week. She looked happy. Rachel stares at the screen for a long time. No tears come this time, just a quiet ache that settles deep in her chest. She smiles faintly, though it doesn't reach her eyes. She deserves that, she murmurs. A clean slate, a life untouched by the shadows we made. Later that night, she lights a candle in the living room. Its glow flickers across the empty walls, soft and uncertain. She opens her journal, the same one that once betrayed her secrets, and writes a single line. Some loves are not meant to last. They're meant to teach. As she closes the book, she looks toward the doorway, half expecting to see Maya standing there, smiling shyly like she used to. But the doorway remains empty. Her voice trembles in the final narration, soft, weary, but accepting. Maybe this is what I deserved, to live with the echo of a love I was never meant to have. To wake up each morning beside her ghost, not as a punishment, but as a reminder. The candle burns lower. The house hums with silence. Outside, the rain begins again, gentle, endless, and cleansing. And for the first time in months, Rachel lets her tears fall freely, not to mourn what was lost, but to forgive herself for what she became. Fade out, asterisk,